So we've covered the different types of aromas. Now comes the interesting part where I will share with you a few tips on how to smell the wines. So the first thing that we're going to try and find out is the intensity of the aromas from the wine. So which means how far from the glass can I detect the aromas? So if I could only detect the aromas inside the glass, or let's say closer to the glass, it means the wine has got light aromas, perhaps light flavors. So it's indicative of a light style of wine. However, if I'm able to get the aromas, let's say from afar, like or just around the chin level, it basically tells me that the aromas are quite intense, which means the wine style is of more intensive in nature. So next, we're going to try and find out the aroma characteristics of the wine. So for this, I would highly recommend using what we call the aroma wheel. Now, this is something you can download from any wine website, and definitely a very handy tool, a good reference point to try and find out the different aromas that you're trying to get from the wine. So you've got to start somewhere. So first thing, what you want to do is just take a good sniff of the wine. You could even close your eyes, and because this would improve your sense of smell, and ask yourself, what exactly do I smell in this wine? So you can be a bit vague to start off with. Does it smell like fruits? Does it smell like flowers? Or does it smell like earth? So you start somewhere. Now, in the glass that I'm holding here, I definitely get ripe fruits. So once I've established that, I'm going to pick up this aroma wheel sheet and I'm going to have a look and try and find out what family of fruit aroma am I getting? Am I getting tree fruits? Or am I getting red fruits? Or am I getting tropical fruits? Now, to me, I definitely get ripe tropical fruits. Now, once I've identified this, I am now going to look at the tropical fruit section of the aroma wheel, and I'm going to try and be as specific as possible as to what kind of tropical fruit am I getting. So in the case of the glass of wine that I'm having, I can definitely get some pineapple and mango. I also get a bit of flowers, so more to do with white flowers, so something like jasmine. Also, I get a bit of vanilla and a bit of buttery notes, um, buttery aroma on my nose. This wine definitely has a certain degree of complexity because not only do I get the primary aromas of tropical fruits and flower, but also I do get the secondary aromas of butter, vanilla, um, and I'm quite sure over time this wine will develop these interesting tertiary aromas as well. So every wine that's produced has a potential for X number of years, okay, which we consider as the lifespan of the wine. Now, as the wine ages in the bottle, the wine starts to improve, okay, and it keeps improving until it reaches its peak, okay. It is at this point that we consider that the wine to be at its best. Now, as time passes, what's going to happen, the aromas and the flavors will start to fall off and the wine goes into its decline. And it goes up until the point where the wine is not really fit for drinking. So you have the cheap and mediocre wines, which may have potential for maybe 1 or 2 years. So their lifespan curve is a lot shorter and shallow. And then you'll see that the higher the quality of wine, the longer and higher is the curve. So now we're going to try and establish where in the lifespan is your glass of wine in. So for this, we'll need to first identify the first nose against the second nose, okay? So what does that mean? First nose is basically, let's say I open a bottle of wine, I pour that into my glass, and I take a good smell, okay? Your first smell. Now I take a mental note of that. That there is your first nose. So second nose is when you give your glass a swirl and then give it another sniff. That there is your second nose. So when your second nose is more intense or more pronounced than the first nose, this actually tells you that the wine is developing, which means the wine is going in the upward direction of the curve. If your second nose is as intense as your first nose, it's basically telling you that the curve is at its peak. The wine is at its peak. So, which means it is the best time to drink the wine. If the second nose is less intense or less pronounced than the first nose, this is telling you that the wine is in its downward direction, which means it is basically past its best. So I hope you found this video useful. And I want to conclude by saying that the best way to effectively train your senses is just through practice. Okay? You could keep a wine journal, you could make use of this aroma wheel and try and identify as much as aromas as possible, not just in wines, but also out in nature. Okay? Try and smell the fruits, the flowers, the trees, the leaves. And the more you do this, you will start to develop your memory bank, and over time, you'll be better at identifying aromas. Okay? Keep it simple and enjoy the process. Thank you.